Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank AONE for inviting me to be a thought leader. I have attended thought leader sessions in the past, and I've always learned and enjoyed them. And when I was contacted by Beverly, she said, I said, well, what would you like me to talk about? What am I going to talk about? And she said, well, something that you're passionate about. And I thought, okay, I like racing. I could talk about the Indy 500. Okay, I've been known to tell a few fortunes in my life. I could do that, but maybe I should get a little more focused. Now, some people say, well, you retired. What are you doing at AONE? You retired. And I said, no, I did not retire. I'm in my preferment stage. I prefer to do things that I like to do, when I want to do them, with the people I want to be with. So I want to be with you here today, so I prefer to say, yes, I'll be a thought leader. So I gave it some thought, said, what am I going to talk about? I am passionate about lifelong learning. So these are the objectives for my presentation. They're pretty clear. No rocket science here for sure. I do like the cowboy over there, though. I tried to get a picture of Jake the bull, but he didn't want to cooperate, so we didn't go there. So whenever I have a problem, or I have a challenge or an answer or something, I turn to two people in my life, historical people. Florence Nightingale, we all know, and my second person, some of you will know this from my past, is Abraham Lincoln. So why are these people important to me in terms of lifelong learning? Here's my journey. Anybody recognize this person? As I look out across the audience here, I see a lot of people that were with me between the picture on your left and the picture on the right. I was a graduate nurse from Riverside White Cross School of Nursing diploma program in Columbus, Ohio in 1969. And the picture on the right was when I was president of AONE in 2007. This has been a long and successful journey, I think, as I've made my way through the ranks and continuous learning during that period of time. During this time, I acquired 3 qualities to success, and I'm going to speak to each one of these. A commitment to excellence, persistence, and accountability. And why, and how does that relate to lifelong learning, and why is that important? Because the IOM said so. They have a whole recommendation back in 2010, 2011, when the report came out, that lifelong learning was very important. And so I thought, well, there must be some evidence behind that. And my personal belief is, if you want to remain competent and provide the best quality and the safest patient care, you have to continuously learn. You have to expose yourself to the latest literature, to the thought leaders in our industry and beyond, because now we're talking about interprofessional education and practice. So I believe in that. But before that, I asked my question, what would Abe do with this? Why is it important? What would Flo do? Abe would say, give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. I think that's relevant to lifelong learning. I spent not 6 hours, but 6 years of my doctoral program, and finally I chopped down the tree. And University of Michigan has been happy ever since. And I left Ann Arbor and moved to Iowa City, Iowa. And what would Florence say? Florence, both of these individuals are not only transformative leaders in their day, but thought leaders as well. And here's Florence. 140 years ago, for she who nursed, and of course during that time the nurses were female largely, our nursing is a thing which unless in it we are making progress every year, every month, every week, take my word for it, we are going back. And she followed that up with, The more experience we gain, the more progress we can make. The progress you make in your year's training with us is as nothing to what you must take every year after your year's training is over. Every year of her service, a good nurse will say, I learned something every day. Long before evidence-based practice, reflective practice, information technology, patient safety became part of our environment and part of our practice, Florence was practicing these things and teaching them. Truly transformative in her day, and she continues to be the foundation of this profession. Now we fast forward into 2016. A major political event occurring in this country. And I happen to live not far from Cleveland, Ohio, so I'm really hoping that things go well in July in Cleveland. But the point I'm making here is we've got to survive in this new normal. We haven't really hit the new normal yet. We're on our way to it, I guess. And a lot of people say that Darwin was quoted as saying, it's survival of the fittest. Actually, what Darwin said, it is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is most adaptive to change. And you see the chameleon here. That's the same animal in two different settings. Two different settings. So, lifelong learning. Now, I call it choice or mandate. As registered nurses, there are mandates by the state you practice in, the Practice Act, and by your employer. And these types of mandates go all the way from licensure, of course, to annual competencies. If you're in a specialty area, for instance, the operating room or the critical care areas or whatever, what isn't specialty these days actually, there may be other things that you have to demonstrate your competency. So these are mandates. These are like minimal things that you got to do if you want to work and you want to, regardless of your setting, whether you're inpatient, ambulatory, wherever you are. So my question to you is, do you want your practice defined by minimal standards? Do you just want to be okay? Or do you want something more? Do you want it to achieve in a higher level to provide that high quality patient care? So it's a choice. And the three qualities that I acquired over my lifespan of being a nurse versus a staff nurse for 10 years. 10 years I was a staff nurse. I started out as a psych nurse. That didn't work out so hot. So then I moved to the operating room, and that worked out a little bit better. Then I went back to med surg, kind of bounced around, that kind of thing. But there were three choices that I made early in my career: commitment to excellence, persistence, and accountability. And let me speak to these a little bit. As a new graduate psych nurse, I made a commitment. And a commitment to me to excellence is not an accident. And it's not an act. It's an attitude. It's an attitude. And I wanted to be the best psych nurse I could be. And I had a lot of patients at Riverside that were depressed. Now, I'm 21 or 2 years old. I don't know what depression is, but I saw it in them. And I saw what impact it was having, not only on them as individuals, but what impact it was having on their families and the impact it was having on society. So I wanted to be the best psych nurse I could be. So I went to some programs that they didn't pay for, I paid for, to learn more about depression, to learn more about the patients that I was taking care of, because I wanted to be the best psych nurse I could be. But then later in life, I became a nurse manager, or head nurse in those days. And I wanted to be the best head nurse I could be. And here again, this is in a time frame when professional development and continuous learning in the workplace really wasn't what it is today. And we're talking the dark ages here. Florence and I, we were together. It wasn't what it is today. So if you wanted to get involved in something beyond what was mandated, you really had to search those things out on your own. You had to go find those opportunities. So what did I do? I joined my local ONE, because I was in Ohio, organization to learn more about that. I was in the operating room, and I belonged to AONE. So I started getting involved in the associations and started learning from my colleagues and people that I thought were thought leaders at the time, and I learned from that. I wanted to be the best head nurse. And then I really did feel that I found my stride at that time. So then I wanted to be a chief nurse executive. And I got really engaged at that time with the Michigan Organization of Nurse Executives. And I learned a lot from that experience as well. How to be a better leader and what did it take. So it was that commitment to excellence, because I wanted to be an excellent nurse executive. Now, persistence. I've talked a little bit about my education over the last few minutes, but I was a diploma graduate. Fortunately, I was at Riverside, was connected with Ohio Northern University, and I had like 60 credit hours toward a BSN. And I applied that later at Kent State University and had a BSN. And in those days, it wasn't online. It was in the seat type of thing. So I went for my BSN, and then later to Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland for my master's, and then moved to Michigan and went to Ann Arbor. This takes persistence. This takes the willingness to give up a lot. It took me 6 years to get my doctorate because I was raising a family too. I was raising a family, and I was working full-time because there was tuition reimbursement by this time. So this was a good thing. So it took me a long time to do that, but I was continuously learning and building upon the skill set that I was acquiring over this span of my career to, again, be able to provide the highest quality care that I could, whether I was in administrative practice or I was taking care of patients in the operating room or at the bedside. And then the professional association engagement. I can't say enough about how that has advanced my learning and my opportunities in my profession. Sigma Theta Tau. I was a member of AONE for a while, the American Nurses Association, but AONE. AONE has just been, because I am in administrative practice, has just been a stalwart in terms of my continuous development as a nurse leader. And volunteering, because when you get involved in organizations, any professional organization or community organization, this is volunteerism. And you have to really make that commitment that you're going to do that as well. And I have enjoyed all of that. There is a national movement now that I think probably everybody knows about, is 10,000 nurses on boards. My friend Kim Harper here in the front is involved in that effort on behalf of the Indiana Center for Nursing in Washington, D.C. with Marla Weston from AANA and others to really have nurses at the seat where policy is formed. But this is volunteerism again. You're not being paid to do these things. You can't be expected to do that. If you are a professional, I think that's part of being a professional, is volunteering. Accountability. And in this context, to me, accountability means owning your behavior and your actions, the positive and the not so positive. I've had my share of successes, no question about it, as all of you have. But I've also had my share of failures, bad ideas. Obviously I didn't go to Flo and Abe during those times. because if I had, I probably wouldn't have made some of those mistakes. But I have learned from all of those, and I have tried to then apply that to my future decisions and judgment and how I interact with people. I am of Irish descent. I am a natural redhead, believe it or not. I have a fuse that's slightly longer than my index finger. And I have had to work on that for going over 6 decades so that my interpersonal relationships, that when I'm dealing with people, particularly difficult things and challenges, that I don't let that get the better of me. It's an effort sometimes, but I've learned from that and I've tried to correct that. Some would call those teaching moments or coaching moments or disciplinary actions. I mean, you know, take your choice. I've had all of them in my career. Lessons learned, again, I've just learned on every one of those how I could have done it different and how I could have done it better. And I try not to make the same mistake twice. I couldn't swear that I haven't done that, but I try not to. I really have a meaningful intention along those lines. So let me share with you, when I talk about choice or mandate, whether you're choosing to just be minimal standards and do what you're expected to do, Joint Commission says so, even magnet, because the magnet says we have to do it. You just want to be meeting these expectations, or do you want to go beyond that? And let me share some scenarios. Here are the scenarios. Here's one. I was compliant with the mandates. I met the minimum standards to practice as a registered nurse in my state. I completed my annual competencies at my organization. I followed the rules and regulations. I showed up, took care of my patients, talked to their families, and went home. And I played well with others. My evaluation says meets expectations. Or alternative scenarios. I have practiced lifelong learning. I became certified in my chosen specialty. I became an expert nurse on my unit, participating in shared leadership committees. I emerged as a leader and became a nurse manager. I went back for formal education and achieved my advanced degree and became a nurse executive. So, again, what will you choose? To define your practice by minimal standards or make a choice? I looked in my crystal ball when I was a new graduate, and I tried to choose wisely. So I implore you, you owe it to yourself and to those who have entrusted their lives to you to care, to make a wise decision. I'm still in a life learning mode. The learning continues even when you're not doing an 80-hour-a-week job. There's always things to learn. And when it's your time to become a Medicare patient, God bless you. That's all I can say. It is a steep learning curve.